I'm someone who used to fight the New World Order. That's right. Nick Dutch was a person who used to fight against the New World Order. Because I came onto YouTube, but I was not very well. I was working strange hours. I was getting like stressed out and paranoid and all the rest of it. And I ended up just watching all of this, Alex Jones stuff and the rest of it. And I got paranoid, and it drove me up the wall. I was terrified of anything from like the airplane jets in the sky and all the rest of it. And all this was because I was working strange hours. I wasn't sleeping. I had a bad diet. I was coming down ill. And I was physically and therefore mentally also, I was in a very bad place indeed. And I decided, I would actually go and fight the New World Order. I would be one of these sort of humans win type people. I'd be fighting against the reptilians. I actually thought this mad stuff. It went through my head. And of course, in retrospect, it was totally hilarious, the fact that any of those thoughts could have gone through my head. I even at some point actually made some anti-New World Order videos, and the very first time I did it, because of all the bile and the anger and all the rest of it that, that I was in, I was actually sort of like almost trying to encourage people to take up arms against like really scary people out there in the world. But whilst I was doing it, whilst I was making this video, this ultimate sort of like we must start the war kind of like video, I noticed there was something in the way that I felt about the subject, in the fact that I couldn't really take it seriously. There was this feeling of lack of authenticity, I think would be a good way of describing it, about my attitude towards this thing. I mean, I'd reach this state of mind of fear and paranoia, fear of chemtrails, fear of like the global depopulation when it finally happens, and the fact that it was supposed to happen on this scary date at some point in this futuristic time of February 2009, which of course has sort of like come and gone, really, hasn't it? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. But what I got is I got the fear and I got the paranoia. But I'd also had this sense of like, it can't really be all that real. Now, the fear I had was very real. Okay, the paranoia which had developed in this time of being very physically ill, having tremendous insomnia and the rest of it, and I developed this like basically a form of neurosis really about the subject of the New World Order. And the idea that like we're all being controlled and that television is mind control, television is evil, the internet was sent by the devil, all this kind of like crazy stuff and like 666 logos everywhere and all that kind of like, it was a very bad head world I got into. But I was like in this two-minded state of being. On one side of things, I was like in a state of knowing it was a load of shit. But I could not allow myself to believe it was a load of shit because I had this paranoid like neurosis which had been developed as a result of being physically healthy and as a result of that not being able to think properly and being obsessed with like watching the Alex Jones channel all the time. Now, it was fascinating, of course, in retrospect because I enjoyed the feeling of the passion, the sense of I'm on the side of right. Okay, which is the kind of thing that you think if you're not feeling very well, and all of a sudden you come across like this wonderful video blog by this very eloquent, passionate individual who's coming out with very militaristic language, and so it felt fun, it felt exciting, it felt like I am doing something good just by sitting down here and essentially being brainwashed by a fat Texan who's basically providing misinformation and disinformation. So it was peculiar. So you got these various different factors. On one side of things, knowing it's rubbish. On the other side of things, a more powerful force, this paranoid neurosis, which I developed. And of course, the thing which fortified the paranoid neurosis and actually made the paranoid neurosis somehow pleasurable. And that was this feeling of righteousness. And yes, we're going to triumph in the end. Of course, when I decided to start looking out for opposing points of view which actually went against the very notion of the existence of the Zionist conspiracy or the New World Order conspiracy, and I started looking at the roots of all these, the various ideas for, stab in the back political legend and where that came from originally. and I started to deal with the neurosis. So I wasn't really was I really becoming a New World Order disbeliever? No, I think I was already a New World Order disbeliever. What I become is a New World Order. During my dark time, as it were, this period of time when I got this neurosis, I was a New World Order paranoid neurotic. Okay, and so I use science videos, and I use the atheist community and all the rest of that to help me to basically get over the neurosis which had been given to me by being physically unwell, and as a result of that being very slowed down, because I was doing without sleep for like 4 days on the trot because of my work. Okay, and that's not very good for you anyway. On top of that, I wasn't doing very well with money because I was paying off shitloads of debts. Okay, so my diet had gone downhill. I was eating very poor quality food, and that doesn't help. Alright, so when you're in a weakened state and you're taking on board scary ideas, you can start to develop something that becomes wrong with you up here. And you sometimes need to work yourself out of that. Unfortunately, so it seems, there's an awful lot of people out there who haven't yet started to deal with the neurosis. And there's even more people out there who've realized that because there's this new form of neurosis within the psychosphere, the psychological sphere of the people who are primarily, here on the internet watching YouTube, alright, they're feeding into it. They can get views, they can do rather well because of it, alright, and do rather well out of it. It was a couple of years ago now. I even saw one particular YouTube channel by this guy who'd taken the whole myth and turned it completely on its head. And I think he'd even wrote a book on Lulu.com, and it was called Illuminate. It was going on about the idea that global depopulation is a wonderful idea, let's build more, FEMA camps or whatever it was. So, there's all kinds of different cultural strains of neurosis, basically, of fear and paranoia, which is out there. I know there's lots of people suffering from it because, people do comment on those anti-New World Order conspiracy theory videos, which I've done. As if to say, Nick, you're wrong, we're right, but they just tend to go to the point of ad hominem attacks and trying to be aggressive and being unpleasant, and that kind of being aggressive and being unpleasant type thing is essentially the way that someone behaves when they're not capable of pointing out facts and sources. Alright, and also if they're, if they themselves have a problem. So these are people I feel very sorry for. They're caught up in that sort of New World Order paranoid neurosis state of mind, and they haven't actually moved out of that and beyond that. One of the many reasons why I've done those videos is to point out that yes, it is possible. You can actually recover from being paranoid about something which doesn't actually exist. Okay? The New World Order conspiracy theory is in fact not even a theory, is it? It's not even a hypothesis. It's a political myth based upon a political legend, which is in fact a complete lie. Alright? And it's been put there to feed into certain political ideas, essentially the far right, for instance, and also certain forms of hard Republicans and people who are interested in these alternative histories, which, and it's not, they're not alternative histories, are they? They're lies.